At 19, she discovered an incredible secret behind her millionaire cowboy husband's touching gift. Clara stood at the entrance of the sprawling ranch their husband Jake had gifted her on their first anniversary, her heart twisting in a tangled knot of excitement and unease. The sun hung low in the Texas sky, casting golden rays over the fields that seemed to whisper secrets of generations past. On the surface, it was a dream come true, the kind of fairy tale every waitress in town secretly envied. Yet a subtle weight settled in her chest, heavy with unvoiced doubts. Jake, with his charming smile and easy laughter, had always been her beacon of hope in a life filled with diner grease and late-night shifts. But as she stood there, gazing at the polished gates and the endless horizon, Clara felt shadows creeping in. Questions fluttered at the edges of her mind. What did it truly mean to inherit such a legacy? What unspoken past was intertwined with this gift? The thrill of wealth shimmered, but something deeper stirred within her, a moral pull, a history yet to be uncovered. Clara's upbringing was rooted in modesty. Her mother had spent countless nights working 2 jobs, teaching Clara the values of grit and determination. The tough love had shaped her into someone who valued hard-earned success. Wealth, though alluring, was something she had learned to approach with a wary heart. As Jake's deep pockets began altering their lives, flashes of her childhood flickered before her, friends left behind, the tight-knit community becoming a fading memory. The thrill of the ranch felt tarnished under the shadow of these realizations. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As day turned into night, Clara's thoughts spiraled. She felt her loyalty stream in different directions, towards Jake and this new life of ease, but also towards the lessons of her youth, lessons grounded in struggle and humble living. Was this charm concealing something insidious? Tension twisted in her gut, vibrating insistently. She needed answers. The ranch, something so beautiful, now felt like a gilded cage, housing more than just her and Jake's dreams. It was weighted with secrets that threatened to redefine their love. Her resolve hardened. She began to search through old records, journal entries, anything she could find to piece together the truth. Amidst dusty silence, she discovered an old court document that hinted at long-buried jealousy and disputes. The ranch had belonged to a neighboring family, their loss ignited by a bitter feud with Jake's ancestors. With each revelation came a deeper sense of betrayal. The man she loved, the man who had promised her the stars, was tied to a history of pain that she could never fully understand. Clara's hands trembled as anxiety swarmed her heart. The whispers of Jake's wealth morphed into a cacophony of uncertainty, each revelation chipping away at whatever naive bliss she had felt just days before. She had built a life around her values, but what if marrying Jake meant compromising those very principles? The pressure mounted as shadows of doubt grew thicker. Did she dare confront Jake with the secret she'd uncovered, risking not only the newly built life together, but also the love that sparked between them? As she finally made up her mind to face him, an unexpected knock on the door shattered the stillness of the night. Heart racing, Clara froze. What new discovery awaited her? Would it shed light or deepen the veils of mystery surrounding her husband, testing the very essence of her beliefs and future? The storm was brewing, and Clara stood in its path, ready or not. With the knock still echoing in her mind, Clara steadied herself. She was caught between fear and curiosity, the door standing as a threshold not just to the outside world, but to the difficulties that lay ahead in her relationship with Jake. The uncertainty weighed heavily on her, but she knew she couldn't escape her growing sense of apprehension. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door just a crack. There, standing in the dim light, was a tall figure she recognized immediately. It was Miles, Jake's childhood friend and confidant. A serious expression marred his typically easygoing demeanor, making the air around them feel charged with tension. "Clara, can I come in?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Clara hesitated for a moment, her instinct to keep conversations private wrestling with the knowledge that secrets had begun cascading into her life. "What's going on?"
Might be better to talk inside, he urged, glancing over his shoulder. Clara stepped aside, her resolve quaking as she motioned for him to enter. Once seated in the dim-lit living room, Miles' hands restlessly fidgeted with the cuff of his shirt. I don't know how to say this. He paused, taking a deep breath. You need to know that what you've uncovered about the ranch, it's bigger than you think. Her heart quickened. What do you mean? I found court documents showing a feud. Right, but there's more to it. He leaned forward, urgency marking his expression. Jake had no idea about the depth of the situation when he gifted you the ranch. It's a complicated history laden with resentment and tragedy. Each word landed heavy, igniting a firestorm of questions in her mind. Why hasn't he told me any of this? He should have been honest. Miles' gaze softened, but his voice remained serious.
Jake thought he could protect you from the past. He was trying to shield you from the darkness that still lingers in the shadows of that place. Clara felt a swell of emotion, anger, betrayal, and an odd sense of sympathy. Jake had always painted a bright picture, but now every brushstroke seemed tainted. The love she felt started to felt like a fraying thread, ready to snap under the weight of undisclosed truths. You know what happened. Miles nodded. There were threats, vandalism, things that pushed Jake's family to make choices that have haunted them for generations. They lost more than a ranch. They lost their sense of community and trust. As Clara processed this information, her heart craved clarity, but the more she learned, the less certain she felt about the love that had blossomed amid their idyllic Texas backdrop. Why did you wait so long to tell me? I didn't want to put more strain on your relationship, but what Jake has built with you, it's real. He needs to come to terms with what they did, and he needs your understanding. Clara's thoughts whirled. Trust became fragile, and yet love demanded she dig deeper. She had buried herself in those documents with a sense of purpose. She needed to connect the dots further. The discovery of the ranch had opened a Pandora's box, but she held the power to navigate what came next. I need to confront Jake about this, she finally said, realization dawning on her. Miles studied her, appreciating her resolve. Do you think you're ready? Her heart raced, not just with uncertainty, but with a burgeoning strength. The journey she was on was both painful and enlightening. If I want to build a future with him, I need to face this storm head-on. Secrets can't be the foundation of our love. Steeling herself once more, she rose to her feet, a newfound determination tingling in her fingertips. And I'll make sure he faces them too. With that, she turned to get her phone. As she dialed Jake's number, a shiver of both dread and anticipation coursed through her. Would this be the moment they could either unravel completely or forge a stronger bond? Before the call connected, the door creaked open again, and Clara spun around. This time, her heart dropped at the formidable figure standing there, Jake himself, wearing a look etched with concern. Clara, we need to talk. As their eyes locked, all her plans crystallized in an instant. The confrontation awaited, each heartbeat thundering with implications that could change everything. Would the truth bind or break them? Clara's heart pulsated in her throat as she met Jake's gaze, his familiar blue eyes now shadowed with a vulnerability that felt foreign. The air crackled between them, charged with unspoken words and raw emotion. She dropped her phone to the table, the call forgotten. Clara, Jake started, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. His posture was protective, yet he looked weary, as if the burdens of his past were etched into the lines of his face. I know I haven't been completely honest with you. How could you think giving me the ranch would be enough without the full story? Clara replied, her voice steady, but the tremor of hurt betrayed her. It was not just Jake's silence she resented, but the implications behind it. Jake ran a hand through his hair, his frustration matching hers. I didn't want to bring you into the mess, Clara. I wanted to give you something beautiful, something that could be ours without the weight of years of hurt. The walls around them felt confining, magnifying the emotional distance she couldn't reconcile. Suddenly, she felt caught in the euphoria of love, but now twisted into a complicated knot of betrayal. But how can I trust a future built on half-truths? Love doesn't just flourish in the absence of pain, it's in how we confront it. His eyes widened, a flicker of realization sparking within. You're right, and I'm sorry. I was terrified of losing you. I thought if I kept you away from it all, you would remain safe. I didn't account for your strength to face this with me. A rush of admiration intertwined with disillusionment. His protective instincts, which once seemed charming, now sparked a sense of resentment. You don't get to decide what's safe for me, Jake. If our relationship is going to flourish, we need honesty. I deserve to know everything, including the shadows that loom.
Clara paused, her mind racing with the implications of bringing their unresolved past into the open, yet she felt an undeniable urge to empower herself. It wasn't just about confronting Jake. It was about reclaiming her narrative, her power, and her love. Tell me, all of it. I need to hear what you've avoided. Jake's gaze softened, an emotional storm brewing behind his eyes. There were threats against my family, things that escalated. My father, he made choices because of those threats, choices that led to the destruction of relationships we once held dear. It's why we lost the ranch, why it means something different to my family than anyone understands. Each word he spoke chipped away at the barrier she had built between her feelings and the clarity she sought. Anguish mixed with understanding as she took a step closer, realizing she needed to excavate these layers of pain, not just to help Jake, but to unearth her strength as well. And you think I couldn't handle knowing that? She probed, her voice firm yet gentle. I've faced challenges before, Jake. I deserve that respect. The room fell silent, the weight of unprocessed history hanging thick between them. He nodded slowly, the fight escaping him, leaving vulnerability exposed. I wanted to spare you this, but I see now how naive that was. Clara pulled her hands into her sleeves, suddenly cold. The realization that their future hinged on this moment pressed down heavily.
Her determination solidified. She would not let this fracture break them. Instead, she would mold their shared pain into something enduring. I want us to confront the past together, she finally said, drawing a deep breath to steady herself. But we can't move forward without addressing these ghosts. I need you to trust me as much as I'm trying to trust you. Jake's expression shifted, a mix of relief and gratitude washing over his face. You're right. The time has come to face everything, together. Yet beneath her resolve lingered a quiet fear. What if understanding didn't lead to reconciliation? What if these revelations cracked the foundation they'd built? As they stood there, the air heavy with unresolved tensions, Clara knew they could either harness this moment to rebuild or watch it all unravel. The stakes felt higher than ever. Then let's start tonight, she said, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and hopeful anticipation. As they prepared to unearth the stories that lay buried deep, the door creaked open again, and an unexpected arrival chilled Clara to the bone. A stranger stood on the threshold, holding a piece of paper that could alter everything. Jake, I have something you need to see. The confrontation was only beginning, and this new twist seemed potentially disastrous. Clara's mind raced. Who was this person, and what other hidden truths lay ahead? Clara's pulse quickened as she exchanged glances with Jake, their moment of truth abruptly shattered by the stranger's presence. The figure in the doorway wore a nervous expression, eyes flickering between them as if sizing up the situation. Who are you? Jake's voice was tight, defensive, as he stepped protectively in front of Clara. The weight of his body felt like a shield, but it wouldn't obscure the impending storm. I know this is sudden, the stranger stammered, raising the paper slightly as if it bore some ancient script. But I need you to see this. It concerns the ranch, and everything that happened. Clara stood in silence, feeling her breath hitch. She could sense Jake's tension as he searched the stranger's face for answers, grappling with the emotional burden already looming between them. What could this person possibly reveal that hadn't already rattled their fragile connection? I don't want to hear it. If you're here to stir up more trouble, you can leave now, Jake snapped, his dominating presence shifting the energy in the room. No, you need to know. The stranger held up the paper defiantly. This isn't just about the ranch. It's about your family and the choices that were made. I felt my heart plummet. Choices. Those seemingly innocuous decisions often threaded into the fabric of unforeseen consequences. Suddenly, I felt unarmed in this confrontation, uncertain if she was ready for whatever truths were about to unravel. Taking a breath to steady herself, she stepped beside Jake, her own resolve igniting. We'll hear you out. If there's more to this story, we need to know. Jake's shoulders tightened as he glanced at her, a silent conflict raging in his eyes. It was one thing to believe in confronting the past together. It was another to accept their relationship could be guided by unrelenting shadows. With a small nod, the stranger stepped into the room, the tension shifting slightly as they unfolded the paper. The longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes to face. Secrets have a way of growing in the dark. Clara's gaze flicked to Jake, reading the mixture of anger and worry on his face. She recalled their earlier conversation, the strength that they could cultivate together. This was a pivotal moment, not only for their relationship but for their individual growth. She could feel her determination crystallizing within her. As the stranger began to speak, detailing events that led to the ranch's downfall, Clara focused on Jake. He stared straight ahead, brow furrowed. She knew that what they unearthed next could either bury him deeper in his past or set him free. And in doing so, it would test who they were as a couple, what they were willing to fight for, and how they would support one another moving forward. Your father made a deal. It's what led to the threats, the stranger continued, driving home each revelation. But there's something you don't know about that deal, Jake, and someone's been pulling strings from behind the curtain that could threaten everything you've worked to rebuild. Clara shifted closer to Jake, sensing both his isolation and a small flicker of hope igniting within. They were on the brink of understanding his past and their future more profoundly than they had imagined. This moment dripped with tension. It was a catalyst for change. Jake's jaw clenched, questions battling for space in his mind, but Clara could see a newfound determination wrapping around the chaos. She wondered if he would finally see that facing the shadows could light a path forward, not only for him, but for them. "Let me see the paper," Jake said finally, his voice low but firm. There was an unmistakable shift in his tone. He was surrendering to the moment. As the stranger handed over the document, Clara felt the air grow thick with untold stories. Would this revelation help Jake come to terms with his past, pulling them closer together, or would it build another wall they'd have to scale, higher than the one before? With decisions looming that would either make or break them, Clara's mind raced with realizations. The choice she had made to stand by Jake would define her journey as well, a crucible of love and hardship. She wouldn't just confront the past for him, she was ready to explore her own limits and capabilities. But then again, with this new information in play, she couldn't shake the lingering doubt. What if the truth they uncovered led to more losses than gains? As Jake unfolded the paper, Clara's heart raced with uncertainty.
Would this be their way forward, or simply another distraction from what lay ahead? The answer dangled on the edge of revelation, vibrating with tension, ready to shatter their fragile foundation, yet offering an opportunity to build anew. Just then, the stranger's phone buzzed, breaking the moment of anticipation. "It's not just about the ranch," the stranger said, expression turning serious. "There are people involved who might still come after you, Jake." As Clara absorbed those chilling words, the gravity of their situation hit her full force. What had they stepped into, and were they truly prepared to tackle whatever awaited them together? A deeper plunge into the abyss felt inevitable, yet the prospect of rediscovery excited her. Who would she be after this? The ceiling fan whirred overhead, and she felt the world shift beneath her feet. This wasn't just about trust anymore. It was about survival. Jake's grip on the paper tightened as he studied the words, his face rigid with concentration. Clara could see the tempest of emotions swirling behind his stormy eyes, fear battling with an emerging resolve. This wasn't merely about the ranch, it was about his lineage, his family's failures, and most importantly, the shadows that had haunted him since childhood. "What do we do now?" Clara's voice broke the silence, the urgency palpable in her tone. She pressed closer, seeking to anchor him amidst the chaos. Jake looked up, realization dawning on him. This was more than just his confrontation. The decisions they made together from this point forward could redefine the terms of their relationship. "We need to face this," he said slowly, but Clara discerned the cracks in his armor. Doubt lingered, poised to emerge at any moment. "No matter what's in there, Jake, we are in this together. You've already come so far." Her words felt like a thin shield against the invisible onslaught of what was to come, but she was resolved to keep pushing, ready to support him as a partner. The stranger's expression shifted. They seemed taken aback by the willingness to confront the past. "I wouldn't underestimate what lies ahead," they cautioned. "The people involved are relentless." "Then we'll be ready," Clara declared. The unease in her stomach twisted, but she refused to let it dictate her actions. Envisioning Jake's strength renewed her courage. Together they had an edge, a possibility for resilience. She reached for Jake's hand, hinting at the foundation they vowed to build, one that wouldn't shy away from obstacles, no matter how daunting. Sweat trickled down her spine as she braced for the potential fallout. What did it mean if the revelations dragged forward were darker than they anticipated? As Jake nodded and sat up straighter, Clara could see a flicker of clarity in him. He might have been trapped in the throes of his past, but with her presence there was new energy. He could face whatever storm loomed ahead, and it was not just for himself.
It was for their growth as a couple, and for a future they were both eager to hold tight to. "Let's get everything out in the open," Jake demanded, voice steady and commanding. "Read it to us." The stranger hesitated, but ultimately nodded, clearing their throat. Clara leaned in, heart thudding in her chest, acutely aware that this disclosure could flip their lives upside down. She felt the air grow thick with secrets, previously unseen barriers, challenged by the possibility of truth. With every word the stranger spoke, detailing the deals Jake's father had struck, Clara's mind raced. Jake's history could underpin their future. They were on this precipice together, and that stark reality awakened a surge of determination within her. She thought back to the past few months, their struggles to communicate, the misunderstandings stemming from buried emotions. Would this moment challenge their bond, or would it strengthen their connection against adversity? "I won't sacrifice the life we've built," Jake said, his voice unwavering. Clara felt a swell of pride. However, the absence of certainty gnawed her. She realized that the truths laid bare could just as easily tear them apart as they could bind them together. What would it mean for their dreams, this love they nurtured in the midst of chaos? The uneasy silence underlined their difficulties. Clara's mind filled with unshed doubts. What if they weren't ready? The whispers of her own insecurities echoed just beneath the surface, threatening to unravel the resolve they had built in this brief span of time. As the stranger concluded, the weight of their revelations settled like a dark fog in the room. Clara remained acutely aware. This was not merely about exposure, but transformation. "What's coming next?" she queried, unable to mask the tremor in her voice. The question hung in the air, reflecting the uncertain path ahead. Jake's jaw set, resolve shimmering in his expression. "We prepare, we confront, but most importantly, we choose each other." The stranger's phone buzzed again, a reminder of the outside world threatening to disrupt their fragile alliance. Clara inhaled sharply, grasping that they had barely scratched the surface of the truths awaiting them. As emotions swelled within her, she realized this wasn't merely Jake's moment. It was a turning point for them both. How far would they go, together or apart, in the face of greater peril? If the truth was a lever, would it elevate them or plunge them into a darkness they couldn't escape? The air crackled with anticipation, and Clara knew that the next steps would be pivotal, an irrevocable embrace of their dynamic, something neither had truly faced before. Her heart raced with newfound intensity. They stood on a precipice, even more terrifying than they imagined. Would they rise to the challenge? Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of an irreversible shift. The tremors of uncertainty rippled through her as they prepared to face whatever lay ahead. She had admired Jake's resilience, his ability to confront the stark realities hidden in their lives until this point. Yet with every heartbeat, the stakes rose higher. This was more than a confrontation with the past. It was a catalyst for their future. "Are you ready?" she asked again, her voice steadier this time, as she sought to forge a path through the anxiety. It was a question not just directed at Jake, but also at herself. "Yes," he replied, yet the subtle quaver betrayed the depth of his internal struggle. Clara noted the twitch in his cheek. It told her he was still battling with the shadows of doubt. She could only imagine the weight pressing down on him. The revelations had come thick and fast, and the specters of his father's decisions lingered, threatening to engulf them both. They turned towards the stranger, who was poised with nervous anticipation. Clara's mind raced to construct a strategy, to prepare for the fallout. How would they navigate the fallout from Jake's family's choices? What allies remained, if any? This would demand calculated thinking on their part, not just courage. "Let's tear through the surface," Jake asserted, his determination sparking a fire within Clara. There was strength in that determination, prompting her to reflect on her own feelings. "I need you here with me. We'll face it together." As the stranger elaborated on the intricacies of Jake's familial legacy and the ties that bound them to a history of deceit, Clara began to process the gravity of the situation. Tentative thoughts assessing their every word raced through her mind. Each detail revealed about Jake's father threatened to unearth fears and insecurities she had tried to suppress. The more she listened, the more she felt the urge to reclaim agency over their story. "What do we need to do to be ready?" she interjected, striking away the paralysis of fear. This was more than exposure. It was a call to arms. Reclaiming their lives from the clutches of the past felt invigorating. Jake caught her gaze, his expression softening for just a moment, as if appreciating her resolve. She could see the moment of realization. He was learning that this fight wasn't just about him anymore. It involved her, too. They were partners in this journey, grappling with shadows of familial legacy while shaping their own. "First, we need a plan," he replied, voice steadier, confidence seeping back into his stance. "We must understand the risks and fortify ourselves for what comes after." The clarity in his voice reassured Clara. It was time to wield their newfound strength.
The stranger nodded, clearly impressed by their unified front. What had begun as a revelation of Jake's past was evolving into a crucial point of growth for both of them.
Clara sensed an electrifying shift, one that transcended mere survival. It was an advancement in their relationship, a deepening trust as they faced the unvarnished truth. "Should we meet with my family?" Jake suggested cautiously, as if leaning into the idea would make it more palatable. "They're the ones who need to answer for their actions, and if I'm honest, I need to hear it from them myself." Clara could feel her pulse racing at the prospect. Meeting the family head-on meant more than a confrontation. It symbolized their commitment to each other. It would test every foundation they had built over the past months. Were they ready to stand strong against a legacy that had long shackled Jake's spirit? "I think it's necessary," she replied, knowing how powerful it was to confront the source of pain, to wrestle it into submission. "But we need to prepare, strategize everything we can." With newfound conviction, they began to outline their approach. Clara's heart, which had been gripped with trepidation earlier, now propelled her forward. This moment had ignited her spirit in ways she had not anticipated. She could sense her own resilience awakening, ready to tackle challenges head-on. But in the recess of her mind, the nagging question remained. Would their decision to confront the past unravel the bonds they had forged, or would it be the cornerstone for a new beginning? Just as a plan of action began to solidify, Jake's phone buzzed again, breaking the intensity of the moment. Clara's heart sank momentarily. It felt like a reminder of the impending chaos. The world outside could easily pull them back, but she steeled herself. They would move forward. "We're in this together," Jake murmured, the words anchored in steely resolve as they stepped towards their uncertain future. Clara realized they were at a crucial crossroads. Each step would either summon their strength or force them to confront the fissures that lay dormant in their relationship. As they drew closer to embarking on this challenging journey, Clara's thoughts turned again to the implications of what this meant for both of them. Could they emerge with their lives and love intact? Every decision mattered now, and she could only hope it wouldn't become a burden that would shatter everything they had fought for. Her breath hitched as she caught Jake's eye. This was just the beginning. What awaited them on the other side of this confrontation? Would the truth unite them, or would it be the catalyst for irreparable separation? Clara took a deep breath, her fingertips brushing against the cool metal of Jake's phone. The vibrating screen illuminated the shadow of their impending confrontation. She could feel the weight of anticipation settling like a heavy fog, and despite everything they had discussed, uncertainty loomed over them. "Who is it?" she asked, striving to maintain a lightness in her tone to counteract the building tension.
Jake glanced down at the screen, his expression faltering as he swiped to view the message. "It's from my mother." The words hung in the air, heavy with implications. Clara noticed the muscles in his jaw tighten, a telltale sign of his rising anxiety. What would it say? Did it offer reassurance, or were they about to be swept back into the chaos they were trying to escape? "Do you want to read it alone?" she offered, recognizing that sometimes personal battles require solitude. Jake chewed his lip, the flicker of indecision flashing across his face. "No," he finally said. "I want you with me." They huddled close, the intimacy protective against the outside world. As he opened the message, Clara's heart raced along with the accelerating rhythm of Jake's breath. "I'm not ready to face them," Jake muttered, his voice nearly a whisper. "I wish I could just run away." "It's okay to feel that way," Clara replied, her tone a soothing counterpoint to his spiraling thoughts. Underlying her concern was her own fear. The stakes were higher than ever. She could almost hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears as she envisioned the confrontation ahead. "Maybe we could postpone it a little longer?" The suggestion tumbled from Jake's lips, a desperate bid to retreat. Clara noticed the vulnerability in his eyes, a part of him wishing to remain tied to safety, rather than venture into unknown depths of his family's past. "No," Clara said firmly. "We need this. You need this." Her voice held an unexpected strength. "Running away has never fixed anything. Remember how we talked about reclaiming your narrative?" Jake met her gaze, and the pang of doubt on his face collided with Clara's steely resolve. It was a pivotal moment, not just for him, but for her. Her conviction illuminated a path that had previously seemed obscured by shadows of fear. How was she steering this? This was supposed to be Jake's journey, yet she felt surprisingly empowered in the role of a guide. "Okay," he yielded, succumbing to the inevitability of their situation. "We'll face it together." As he committed to that notion, Clara felt the shift reverberating not just between them, but within herself as well. It was as if each shared decision sculpted a new version of her, one that was resolute, capable, and ready to embrace challenges. "Let's write down a list of what we need to confront." Clara took out a notebook, her hands steady despite the swirling emotions within.
They began defining their questions about the family's legacy, the pain surrounding Jake's father, and the unanswered fears of both his past and their shared future. Talking it through can help, she reasoned, scribbling notes furiously. We need to be direct. There's no room for half measures. Each point they penned together wrapped around their budding courage like a protective shield. Jake appeared lost in thought, yet Clara sensed the growing resolve beneath the surface.
As they outlined their engagement, she noted a shift in their dynamic. The act of planning was transforming the way they perceived the upcoming confrontation. It was no longer a looming threat, but an actionable strategy, the steps toward liberation. Tomorrow, we need to meet my parents, Jake finally articulated, emerging from his reverie as though emerging from murky waters into the light. Clara felt a rush of pride at his decision. The commitment cemented their partnership, each moment tethering them closer against the tumultuous essence of his past. Together, she echoed, their shared intentions coalescing into a palpable force binding them. But as Clara closed the notebook, a new pang of anxiety unfurled inside her. What had they missed? What would be their immediate next step when facing Jake's family? The budding storm of impending revelations began to churn again. Clara's thoughts returned to what she had been grappling with beneath the surface. Was she truly prepared to face this legacy alongside him? As the sun dipped below the horizon, she turned her gaze toward Jake. Would this confrontation solidify their bond, or collapse under the weight of solitude masked as family loyalty? With unresolved questions settling in the pit of her stomach, Clara swallowed hard. This was the turning point. Tomorrow they would confront not just family secrets, but their own. What were they truly willing to sacrifice to achieve their freedom? And if they did emerge stronger, would they still recognize the path they had chosen? Clara awoke to the soft glow of dawn filtering through the curtains, the light cascading into the room like a gentle reminder of the day ahead. The remnants of the previous night's tension haunted her thoughts, knotting her stomach tightly. Today wasn't simply about confronting Jake's family. It was also about asserting her newfound resolve and the role she would play in this pivotal moment. As her feet hit the floor, an unexpected wealth of self-doubt rushed over her. Was she prepared to act as both support and participant? Could she remain steadfast when those deep-rooted family dynamics inevitably surfaced? Clara shook her head, dismissing the fear threatening to cloud her mind. Each step toward the bathroom transformed into a mantra. This was an opportunity for growth, both for Jake and for herself. She followed a morning routine that had become instinctive over time, but today she was hyper-aware of each motion. The way she brushed her hair felt different, the swish of the bristles echoing her resolve. Staring at her reflection, she focused on the person looking back. "You are strong," she whispered. "You matter in this story." Each moment spent in front of the mirror served as reaffirmation, a rejection of the fear whispering insidiously in her ear. After a light breakfast, Clara met Jake at the arranged spot, her brisk itinerary bouncing in her mind.
It was clear they were both determined, yet the visible uncertainty in his eyes mirrored her own apprehension. Over pancakes, they briefly reviewed the notes they'd outlined the night before. A blend of preparation and spontaneity loomed in the air. "I can imagine the tension already," Jake remarked, a slight waver breaking through his confident facade. Clara inhaled deeply, gathering herself. "We're not tributaries flowing back into that chaos. We're carving out a new stream." The conviction in her voice seemed to appease the nervous energy bouncing between them. As they arrived at Jake's childhood home, a surge of nostalgia enveloped him, marking the air with mixed emotions. Clara noticed the clenching of his fists, the way he stood just a little taller, as if trying to mask vulnerability beneath a veil of defiance. "Are you ready?" she asked softly, offering him an anchor amidst the turmoil. Jake looked down the path leading to the front door, his breath hitching as memories flickered. "Ready as I'll ever be, I guess." They crossed the threshold together, and immediately Clara felt a seismic shift. The living room appeared unchanged, yet it felt hostile, filled with the weight of whispered secrets and unvoiced grievances. Greeted by Jake's mother, the tension blossomed into something tangible, wrapping them in an uneasy embrace. "Jake," she said, the syllables rigid as if carved from stone. Clara felt his body stiffen beside her. Steeling herself, Clara squeezed his hand, the gesture signaling solidarity. Their path forward had begun. "Mom, I need to talk," Jake's voice broke,
powerful and strangely soothing. It was in that moment Clara grasped the gravity of this confrontation. It was no longer merely about Jake. It was about both of them redefining the narrative of their stories. Staring back into the abyss of family history, Clara felt a simmering strength within her, a deeper understanding of their struggles, their triumphs, and the secrets lingering beyond the surface pulsed within her veins. She glanced at Jake, recognition dawning upon her. This was not just his journey, it was her evolution as well. With each layer of truth they unraveled together, she felt her capacity to face adversity expand. Yet as Jake's mother began to unravel tales long kept hidden, Clara felt the weight of betrayal brushing against them. Would uncovering these truths solidify their bond, or fracture it into irreparable fragments? The fear coursed through her, a dark specter haunting her resolve. Together, Clara muttered under her breath, reclaiming her focus. The path they were stepping onto was uncharted, filled with the potential for liberation or ruin. Then one piercing question broke the stifling silence. What really happened to my father? In that split second, Clara realized that everything hinged not just on context, but on the unraveling of Jake's family legacy and the foundation of their connection.
Would the revelation bring them closer or push them apart? The question hung in the air like a dark fog, thickening the already palpable tension. Clara felt her heart race, the thump echoing in her ears as Jake's mother's expression twisted into a mask of skepticism and resentment. She instinctively glanced at Jake, whose face had paled as the words settled heavily between them. "Jake," his mother began, her voice trembling but resolute, "there are things about your father that you don't understand. You think you can just waltz back in here and demand answers?" The challenge hung provocatively, setting the stage for a fierce confrontation. Clara felt the heat rise within her, a sudden surge of indignation stirring her courage. This was not just Jake's battle, it was theirs. She leaned closer to him, willing him to absorb her strength. It was time to reclaim some power over the narrative they were involved in. "You deserve the truth, Jake," she said firmly, turning her gaze toward his mother. "We all do. It's time for the honesty that's been lacking for far too long." The silence that followed felt agonizing, an electric tension arcing between Jake and his mother. Clara's resolve was solidifying, even as the fear of the unknown crawled along her spine. She had to be the catalyst here, standing firm in the middle of the storm brewing between them. "What truth?" Jake's mother challenged, her demeanor folding into a mixture of defensiveness and confusion. "You think it's simple? That we can just air our laundry in front of you?" "We can't heal what we don't acknowledge," Clara countered, her voice steady. It was more than a reply, it was a statement of intent. In that moment, she recognized a new layer of her strength, a fierce protector not just for herself, but for Jake. Jake's eyes flickered with surprise at Clara's passion. He had expected her to be the steady anchor, but not the outspoken advocate. Igniting a flicker of hope, he stepped closer, visibly steadying himself with her encouragement. "Mom, all I know is that when I left, I did so without really understanding my place in this family or what happened to my father. You kept those questions from me," he stated, determination pouring into his words. "You have to help me make sense of this." With palpable resistance, his mother crossed her arms, her own history brimming behind the barrier she'd constructed. Clara could practically feel the fissures forming from the truth so long buried, and as chaotic as it was, it felt like the right time to strike. "What's the point of holding back?" Clara pressed on, needing to dispel the suffocating fog enshrouding them. "Don't you see? The silence harms all of us. You can't protect him by keeping these truths hidden. It only keeps the wounds open." In that moment, something shifted in Jake's mother's expression. Clara could almost see the internal struggle unfold, recognition of the collective need for liberation from shame and secrets. The emotion simmering beneath her rigid exterior reflected a woman trapped in her own cycle of pain. Would she break? "Fine," the older woman relented slightly, her voice just above a whisper. "But know this, once you learn, there is no going back." Clara's heart raced as she steeled herself for whatever revelations lay ahead. She held Jake's hand tighter, channeling both her anxiety and her resolve into this singular act of solidarity. This confrontation wasn't merely about Jake's father, it was a crucible for them both, a treacherous path towards acceptance. Every moment coaxed forth buried memories, and Clara sensed the layers of their collective histories finally being peeled back.
Secrets often have a way of unraveling interconnected lives, exposing hidden talents, igniting old rivalries, and redrawing boundaries in the most unexpected places. As they began to delve deeper into the familial unraveling, a sharp voice cut through. But you have to consider if the truth is worth the price. The air thickened again with uncertainty, and Clara felt the weight of the choice before them. Could they withstand the revelation? Were they ready for the consequences that lay in wait? The sense of urgency pressed upon her as she glanced at Jake, each realization morphing into a question. Whatever it is, we're meant to face it. Together, she breathed, her commitment strengthening as their surroundings closed in, filled with the scent of bygone memories. What they would unearth from this sea of familial history could either bind them or shatter their foundation as they knew it. Would this journey bring clarity or destruction? Clara's mind raced with anticipation, for the gravity of the moment was only just beginning to unfurl. In that charged environment, another truth hung palpably. Would they be able to bear it all?
Together, they would navigate the innumerable implications of his family history. Her presence felt liberating, allowing him to acknowledge the pain that had previously shackled him. "Did he ever think of the consequences?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. "Did he ever consider the people he hurt?" The questions tumbled out with raw urgency, fueling the emotional fire ignited over the years. Clara sensed that he was not merely confronting his parents, but dismantling the walls he had built to protect himself from the truth. "Sometimes a choice made in the heat of the moment can lead to generations of heartache, Jake," his mother replied, her voice thick with sorrow. "Your father didn't see the fractures until it was too late. Our family's legacy is marred, and it's because of that misunderstanding and the defensive actions that followed." Clara felt a pang of empathy surfacing within her. She could see the humanity flickering behind Jake's mother's defenses. This was a woman wrestling with her own demons and attempting to reconcile her past mistakes. "What do we do now?" Jake's voice quivered with uncertainty, threading through the tension in the room. Clara could see the war waging within him, each paternal wound pulling at memories he long buried, and each bit of new information weaving a more complex tapestry of pain. "We confront it," Clara interjected, her voice steady and strong. "We don't run from this. We face it head on, together. That's the only way we can heal." The air hung thick with unspoken fears as Clara's decree filled the room. This was the turning point, an understanding that would define not only Jake's connection with his mother, but also solidify their partnership. Jake's mother's gaze darted between Clara and her son, grappling with Clara's fierce advocacy. "It's not that simple," she cautioned softly. "What if facing the truth tears us apart even more?" "Or what if it transforms us?" Clara challenged gently, her confidence compelling. "We have a choice: continue to hide and let these dark clouds suffocate us, or leap into the light, despite the risk." Clara could see a flicker of acknowledgement pass through Jake's mother as the enormity of the situation settled. There was power in their willingness to embrace vulnerability, power that could change the trajectory of their shared story. "It takes courage to accept the past," Clara continued, her heart racing with determination. "But we can break the cycle of silence. We are no longer children lost to the legacy of our parents' choices. We are forging our own path." The room was laden with silence as Clara's words sunk in. Jake's mother's expression softened, the deep-seated rigidity beginning to loosen. Clara believed this could be the moment that altered the direction of their lives. With a trembling breath, his mother nodded slowly, fragile vulnerability revealing itself. "Perhaps it's time."
The vulnerability in her voice plunged Clara deeper into her purpose. She could feel the steady satisfaction settling like a warm glow within her. This was more than a confrontation. It was a quest for authenticity and clarity. "Then let's start today," Jake urged, stepping into the unknown, even as uncertainty fluttered in his heart. Clara braced herself, aware that they were dismantling far more than just family secrets. As all three began to speak honestly about the past, Clara felt the connection solidify. They were sharing burdens, two generations loosely bound by tradition and secrets, now navigating a new realm of understanding. Each revelation sparked a fire of clarity, igniting not just Jake's resolve, but also bonding them tighter than before. In the ensuing moments of confrontation, Clara found herself empowered, her fears yielding to a growing sense of agency.
She was no longer just a passive participant. She was a pivotal player, actively shaping their destiny. With each truth shared, they crafted a narrative not just of resolution, but of shared responsibility. Eventually, all three began to forge a path toward healing. They didn't have all the answers, nor would truth eradicate the pain entirely, but the burden seemed lighter when shared. Each individual stepped into the light, equipped with newfound understanding and mutual compassion. Jake's confession of emotions poured forth: sadness, loss, anger, resolution. Clara saw the resolve in his eyes, the integrity he summoned when confronting the past, recognizing that it fed into their growth as a couple. She had witnessed a profound transformation, not just within him, but within herself as well. Later, as they emerged from the charged atmosphere back into the warmth of the day, Clara felt a renewed sense of fulfillment wash over her. They stood united, not defined by the shadows of their families, but rather anchored in their willingness to commit to growth. Together, they would confront whatever lay ahead, striding into the future with courage they had earned through truth and vulnerability. Their journey had shifted, now imbued with deeper understanding, resilience, and a shared vision for their lives. Clara had conquered fears, shattered the confines of her previous insecurities, and emerged with a solid confidence rooted in authenticity. As they walked hand in hand, Clara knew that this moment signified more than a mere confrontation. It was the foundation upon which she had built a life of true fulfillment. Each step forward took them closer to a future molded by the power of their love and courage. For anyone listening to their journey, the stakes were higher than even Clara had dared to imagine. They had steadily transformed into co-authors of their narrative. Embrace your journey, face your fears, and never shy from forging ahead into the unknown. Life thrives on the strength of choice, and the bravery can find in confronting what lies hidden. Don't let this moment pass.
Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Show your support for tales of personal triumph. Comment your thoughts and theories about Clara and Jake's ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to uplift these poignant stories. Don't wait even one more second to share.